back, ladies and gentlemen of our jury. This is, as we've talked about, sometimes the difficult part of after eating a big lunch, having to sit down in here and listen. But we're going to ask for you all to be attentive. We are going to turn the time over to Mr. Perry for your closing remarks.
Please support.
Yes, sir.
January 7th, 2023, at 8:30 more or less. Tadarrius Bean didn't know anything about Tyre Nichols. He didn't know anything about what Tyre Nichols had done. At that time, he didn't know anything about the fact that moments earlier, Tyre Nichols drove from 285 in Riverdale all the way to Ross in Rains while having blue lights cut on at first and then cut off because Memphis has a no chase policy. At 8:30, Tadarrius Bean would not have known whether or not Tyre Nichols had a gun, whether or not he had a knife, whether or not he knew self-defense. He didn't know whether he had murdered anybody. He didn't know whether or not he had kidnapped somebody or carjacked somebody, because those are the things that Tadarrius Bean has to interact with on a nightly basis. Those are the types of arrests that he's made. At 8:30, Tadarrius Bean was a passenger in a vehicle that had a person in handcuffs because they had a warrant. And he hears that a person has been tased and pepper sprayed and had gotten away from his fellow officer. That's all that Tadarrius Bean knew. So at 8:30, on that same evening, while he's a passenger looking into the night for a suspect, not knowing what he had done or who he had done it to, he looks out the window and sees the person who meets that description. Tadarrius Bean, after he saw that suspect and met that description, would have a fate that would intercept with somebody who, according to his mom, didn't have it all together. At 8:32, Tadarrius Bean, not knowing anything about this man, did this. That's what he's trying to do. He sees a person that meets a description and he runs to get that person. No more, no less. He doesn't know anything about this. He doesn't know that this is in the man's car. None of those items belong to that man, but he doesn't know that. All he knows is that this person, after being lawfully stopped and attempted to be searched, took off running and overcame 3 grown men. And he attempts to do his job. I told you at the beginning that the law in this case would come from the judge, and that hasn't changed. But the facts come from this stand. And the facts that turned in red on this all support not guilty verdicts on all counts for Tadarrius Bean. Every witness supported Bean's not guilty. Every one of them. When asked about him holding this person and why he's holding him, every witness says the same thing. You can't let a person go if he has one cuff on and one cuff off. You just can't do it. Every witness, all of the documentary evidence supports Bean being not guilty. You see those items that are stolen. That's from the person who was just getting sesame chicken. But Bean doesn't do anything to punish this person. He's trying to apprehend him. Every witness says that. Every witness and all the videos support the fact that he's not guilty. And we'll go into these in more detail in the moments to come. if you isolate the actions of Tadarrius Bean, did he have probable cause to chase the suspect? Clearly he did. Was he proper to chase the suspect? Did he chase him in a proper way? All of the witnesses say the same thing. Yes. The evidence shows that Bean, while pepper sprayed, maintained in the constant struggle with the suspect. You heard from the state's witness, Mills, that he pepper sprayed. Not only did you hear from him, but afterwards, when you hear this conversation, the so-called high-fiving about what happened, you hear during that conversation, Bean talking about his eyes burning. But in addition to talking about his eyes burning, he also talks about the fact that I bust my shit again too, meaning his knee. And you'll hear him talk about how the sutures in his knee open while he's out there on that particular night. You'll hear that you heard rather, there's no direct proof of any kicks coming from Bean whatsoever. The only strikes, if you slow it down, you take it at a quarter speed in particular, you see that all strikes are to the forearm after Tyre Nichols is turned over and is reaching up. He pushes the officers off of him while he's on the ground, and they're asking for him to get on his stomach so they can put cuffs on him. It's impractical and dangerous for Bean to let the suspect's hands go. And you heard about the one handcuff on, and you saw the experts in the case. And once again, you should judge Bean's actions based off of the training that he received, and you saw the evidence regarding the training. Scorpion unit, once again, the evidence supports the fact that it was a street crimes operation to restore peace in our neighborhood, that the unit was created to interact with gangs, violent criminals, and to apprehend guns, dope, and money, and they were being told how successful it was. Created in 2021, and it consisted of several teams. And you also heard from both witnesses about how Team 1 was sent to the most dangerous places in response to the most dangerous spikes in crime. And you heard from Mills and Hempfield regarding how they were being congratulated from the brass at the top about the effectiveness of the unit. You had to be selected into the unit. They didn't just ask you to, well, you want to apply to the Scorpion team. They would come and talk to your superiors and ask you, does this person have the type of character and abilities to serve on this type of interactive team? Let's go back to those actions on January 7th. Just like what came from the witnesses, they met on Flickr at 6 for roll call. They were signed out in that East Memphis area due to the spike in auto burglaries and thefts, carjacking. A person driving away from blue lights is indicative of those types of activities. Detective Bean was part of a two-man car, Mills being the driver of that car, and Bean was the passenger. At around 8:30, Detective Bean and Mills have a person in custody with warrants, and they let the misdemeanor warrants go in order to respond to that other location. And the suspect had been tased and pepper sprayed. That comes out over the radio. So that's what their interactions are based on. Detective Bean and Mills see the person, and you saw earlier at 8:32, Bean makes contact from inside his car with him visually, and when he tries to speak to him, the guy takes off running. And then you see that 3-minute struggle. Now, Detective Bean and Detective Justice Smith get to the person almost simultaneously, but Detective Bean doesn't know Justice Smith is even out there on a perimeter. He knows that he's running after this person who has made eye contact with him and made the decision to run away from him. That's all that he knows, and he tries to apprehend him. He used the use of force continuum, and you'll get a chance to read that yourself. Visual presence, verbal commands, and then how it escalates into hard hands. And you don't have to go step by step. They can jump in escalation. Use of pepper spray, the use of verbal judo, the use of hard hands slapping the person's wrist. None of those are out of the ordinary or anything wrong. Once the suspect was finally secured in handcuffs, and you look at the videos yourself, when handcuffs went on this person, nobody came up and got a kick. Nobody came up and got an extra punch. Nobody came up and shook him or did anything inappropriate to him. Once the handcuffs were on, the interaction was over. You get a chance to, when you're back there, review the policy that's been submitted as evidence. You heard from the experts regarding active and passive training, high-risk stops, the response to resistance within that policy, how hard hands and kicks and punches and slaps are a part of the hard hand apprehension process, and the use of force continuum. You heard about tunnel vision, non-lethal force, training in taser usage. The only person that had a taser on that team was Enfield at that time, and how the taser prongs, how the taser hit him. He says, and you'll hear the videos, I hit the bastard. Now here, after being questioned, and as he used the term, and I used it, browbeat, he says he didn't know for sure where they hit him. You judge by the video whether or not it looks like the tasers hit him. It's that simple. You heard from, and I asked the question of the expert, Mr. Cameron, regarding ineffective force versus excessive, because he's written about it and he's presented about it. Ineffective, if you're looking from a sky cam, looks the same as excessive. It just does. If it's not working, it looks excessive. But when you look at the body-worn cameras, and you have to do it in order to appreciate what they're trying to do and what they're going through and trying to get the guy into custody, it's showing they're not trying to punish somebody on the side of the road because you got this person's ID, or you got this person, you were involved in a crime and we're just gonna beat the heck out of you. That's not what this was about. This was trying to get this man into handcuffs. Mr. Mills regrets using his aspartame, and I'm sure he regrets the verbiage that he used. I wanted him to testify, and he did so, about the time in which he changed his plea, because his initial statements was it was by the book. He didn't have the access of the book and looking at it and all that stuff at the time. This was a mere day or two afterwards, and he talked about how he responded and how he acted. But after hours and hours with the Department of Justice, and somebody saying, well, it sounds like you're pissed off. Yeah, it does, all of a sudden change to, well, maybe I shouldn't have used the aspartame. But in fact, he used the aspartame verbatim, the way that MPD teaches you. 3 strikes to the arms. Nobody's hit this man in the head with an aspartame or with any other instrument. He does not get struck with that aspartame anywhere but where they train you, between here and here. And you'll have the opportunity to go back and look at Mills' body-worn camera in order to assess that. And it's important that you do, because it tells the story as how they are moving away from the person, and he still hasn't come into compliance with their request. The use of an aspartame happens. The witnesses in the case, when doing the opening presentation, you don't really know exactly how much a person might be incentivized by the fact that if you're looking at life and negotiated down to no more than 15, etc., that might play a role in saying, well, you know what, I'm going to stretch the truth this far against them. But Mills was honest. He said that their use of force, according to him, when they're holding on, and when I asked him about it, can they let go to talk about somebody striking a person at that time? He said, no, the danger is still there for the officers until the handcuffs or the bracelets, as they call them, are on the person. We talked about the fact that being, and you'll have an instruction regarding character witnesses. Nobody refutes the fact that Bean has the type of character that he had, that he's by the book, that he won't go get a hamburger in an issued car if they say you can't get a hamburger in your issued car. The fact that the person who came in from Mr. Taylor from college said that, hey, even when there was a little money missing, this, that, or the other, he took it so seriously that he came and got me from across campus at the law school and said, how do I deal with this? Let's go to the bank. I want this done immediately. That's the type of person that he is. Then you hear from Mr. McKinney, the one who had the pepper spray. They were in the same class. I wanted him to talk to you about how the effect that it had on him. You'll see how it affected him. But he talked about Mr. Bean's character, that is stellar. You heard from his FTO trainer, or field training officer. He's one of his favorite persons that he has trained through the years, because you tell him one time how to do it, and that's how he's going to do it person. You're the experts. The state didn't produce an expert. Think about that. The funds and things that the state might have at their availability can't find one person to say to you all that Tadarrius Bean's actions were inappropriate. You can say it low. You can try to tear it up. You can almost cry about it. You can say he just wanted to get the good old cheek. But it does not change the fact that Tadarrius Bean acted the way that he's supposed to act. The time for sympathies and stuff like that, I have the highest degree of respect for Ms. Wells. I didn't ask her a question. She lost her son. I understand that. Any mother who loses a son, obviously, would have pain. The driving is a privilege. A person cannot take that privilege to do whatever it might be. Driving, having to stop for blue lights, getting out of a car and acting like you might have done things that you didn't do. They don't know the answers to that as public servants while they are trying to bring this person into custody. They don't have the privilege of second guessing it. It's not there. All of the experts indicated that Bean's actions were appropriate. And then look at the videos. Keep in mind, and it's kind of underscored when Ms. Headley was discussing it earlier, but Bean cuts that video on. The video does not all of a sudden get volume a minute later. What it means is while he's running towards the person, he hits it. And it's your body-worn camera is constantly recording, and then once you trigger it, it keeps the recording instead of recording over it. That's why the volume doesn't come on for a minute. So after he's in the course of running towards this person, supposedly going to do something to punish the man that he's never met before, he triggers his body-worn camera and gets to him and then stops him. But that's his body-worn camera that you hear her discuss about the sounds and things like that. It comes off because Tadarrius Bean, while he's trying to arrest Mr. Nichols, is in that scuffle where Mr. Nichols is constantly reaching up and knocks it off. But that's his triggered body-worn camera. The officers were aware, and you heard Mr. Mills say, well, I didn't know it for days later. There's no testimony whatsoever as to what Tadarrius Bean would have known as he's running towards the person, and they pass this blinking blue light. They know that there's an overhead there. That's no surprise to them. Now, as far as the person who was there and he's been talking about the hours that they've spent in front of the Department of Justice, then it might change to a shock me moment. Yeah, that was the first time I knew about it. But there's been no testimony as to whether or not Tadarrius Bean knew that there was a recording. What we do know is that he recorded himself because he hit that button. And you got to consider the distance and the angle of that pole camera. Next. This is an isolation of the punches that we're talking about, and it's taken from the Skycop camera time. And so it just outlines the force that's used. The red lines at the top, you got two different kicks. You can't tell whether they land, and Ms. Headley talked about a thud on a camera, from the sound of a camera. That's not the same as looking at something and telling whether or not that type of force was administered. And you definitely don't know whether or not it's being seen while Tadarrius Bean is looking down at this guy trying to bend his arm in a way to put handcuffs on. The baton being deployed. If you'll note, and I forgot the exact phrase, but it sounded like clear or move back, when he puts the baton out, they didn't stand in a location around Mr. Nichols to make this ass baton have to hit him in the head. They cleared so he could get to the place where they tell you to administer the blow to the arm. That's why they get out of the way like that. And that's how you're supposed to. Then it appears that Martin slaps him with an open hand, and then Martin hits him. And nobody is here to say Martin did not hit him. Martin's not here. So as to what was going on in his mind and what he thought he was going to do, there's been no testimony regarding that, and how Tadarrius Bean, who's holding on to an arm in these seconds, can all of a sudden say, hey, time out, everybody. Y'all stop. Everybody stop. And know whether or not Mr. Nichols is just going to stand there and say, we're all good now. you can put the handcuffs on me. But what I do know, brutal though it sounds, after the hitting, he fell when they put him to the ground, and the interaction stopped while he's back on the ground. They're on him, still trying to get the handcuffs on him, and they still can't get it until somebody comes in, really, until they can get the man's legs to stop moving and hold the leg for a second so that they can get him steady enough to put the handcuffs on him. And when you're looking at it, look at it from the fact that you're trying not to break his arm or dislocate his arm. That's what the concern of Tadarrius Bean is, and you can tell by their body movements. They're trying not to hurt his arms. That's what they're focusing on. They're trying to get those arms behind him, and he won't put them in a position where they can put the cuffs on him. And it's that simple. There's a lot of discussion about the size of the individual. Tadarrius Bean's 5'10". Tyre Nichols is 6'3", according to the hospital records. According to the records, he's 180, and he's 6'3". Next. I indicated that I would not talk about what he was before or after that night because I'm not concerned with trying to in any way disparage Mr. Nichols. I know that when they got to the door, that for the initial interaction with the police, it was, I don't know him. Until the police, and you'll recall it, you'll get a chance to play that video. The police had to say, so y'all hadn't lived here that long or what have you. This person's ID says that he lives here. And eventually they say, okay, what's going on? They don't know what all he's into. But there definitely had to have been something that this person said, I don't know. So you're expecting Mr. Bean to know the level of force and the level of coercion that it would take to get this man in the handcuffs when his own folks say that they don't know him. We know that he did drive 2 miles away from the blue lights and sirens. You'll see the reenactment. You heard the testimony of Mr. Hemphill, and you'll see the videos that are involved, and you'll see the camera inside the car of Mr. Martin. You know that he ran from the first scene, and he ran from Detective Bean. That was from the testimony of Hemphill and from Mr. Mills. Nichols drove in a manner to avoid police detention. That's according to Mr. Hemphill's testimony. We know that he refused to stop, and he subsequently resist arrest. Mr. Nichols would know that he had dope in the car and the stolen credit cards and the stolen ID. Does he have a right to resist being stopped? All of the experts say that he doesn't. Ms. Headley says that he doesn't. And I agree that he doesn't. Does he ignore lawful commands for his hands to be handcuffed? All 3 experts said that he did. He ignored those lawful commands. Was he actively resisting by running and walking and pulling away from Detective Bean? And the answer is yes. And that's according to all of the experts that are involved. And the actions at 6705 Ross Ridge are important because they show that this is not just somebody trying to get home for chicken or whatever it might be. This is the actions of a person who's doing whatever he is between those cars, trying to avoid being arrested because he knows what he has done and why he's trying to get away from them. They don't know that. They don't have the ability to check inside of his mind. They don't have the ability to even know he's out at 6705. They know that he's gotten away from them and they're trying to bring him in. That's all. Tadarrius Bean is on trial. Mr. Nichols is not on trial like Ms. Headley said. You know, he graduated. He goes to the academy. He gets out of the academy. He's riding with Mr. Turner. He started out as a patrolman 2. Mr. Turner was an FTO officer. He had no write-ups while he was in that precinct. He had no complaints against him. And this is not only while he's in the precinct, but while he's a member of the Scorpion team. He had no issues or accusations of misconduct. Keep in mind, this is not some case when they're talking about, because you'll look at the official oppression, the oppression charge. This is not some case where they're out trying to beat up guys that are accused of selling drugs or trying to make a fast buck or doing something to escort dope dealers or to try to beat up somebody behind an alley because allegedly he did something wrong or that they disagreed with. This is simply textbook police work where you're trying to get a man into custody that is resisting, and you can't do it. And he took his job seriously. He was assigned to Team 1, and that's it. These are the reasons why, and you'll have the 7 charges, and I think you got 35 different subsets. And sometimes people say, well, we don't think that it was second-degree murder. We think that it was reckless homicide, etc. All of those charges require some form of intent or recklessness. And keep that in mind. So the word that you will see in those charges will show that it can't just be, well, we got to, us 3 want all acquittal, and the rest of us say, well, we should give the family something. These are not compromise charges. These are charges that have to be met until they give violence to your individual judgment. In other words, these are charges that they had the burden of proving, and they just haven't proved. But in this case, unlike most cases where it's something, and I'm gonna go through a chart with the burden of proof, etc., where you actually have reasons that you can rely on while you're arguing back here with your co-jurors, if there are any people that think that they've proved anything. Number 1, Bean responds to a distress call the way he's trained. Do you want your officers not to do that? Number 2, there's no plan to harm anybody. All of them said the same thing. There was no conspiracy or, hey, first guy we get tonight, we're going to try to beat the hell out of. There was no discussion about Nichols whatsoever. Number 3, he chases the suspect as he's trained down a dark street. He doesn't know what he has. He relies on his courage out of that night that covered him black from pole to pole, like the poet would say. He did that on his own as he was trained. Knows the suspect has overpowered 3 officers. That's what the call out is. He knows that that's dangerous. Number 4, only hits the suspect's hands. There are times that if they wanted to beat or pummel this dude or break his nose or break his neck, they had that opportunity. When Tadarrius Bean and Justin Smith are trying to get his hands, why not just start wailing on him? Hitting him in the jaw, hitting him in the face, kicking him, stomping him out. Did they do that? Y'all saw the videos. That's not what happened. Next number, 3 experts and police officers all agree with Bean's actions, that they were appropriate under those circumstances. There's no conversation about injuring or restraining or killing Nichols at all from any of their witnesses. Bean manually and intentionally activates his body-worn camera. So to do all of these 7 things that they're saying that they're accusing him of doing, he wanted to record it. So in addition to being this great guy and everything that they make fun of, he's an idiot. He wants to record himself, create these or commit these criminal acts according to them. Bean acknowledged Nichols' strength. You hear the conversations after. These high-five conversations, which is this. He's the hardest dude that we've had to arrest. And I'm going to, excuse my French, and I'm going to just try to talk to y'all plain and forgive me. And if anybody watching me or whatever, that I apologize for the cussing. But they are out there wondering, to use her words, what the fuck is going on? When Ron Will said she had to look at her son, she wanted to know what the fuck was going on. They wanted to know it. That's what they're saying back behind the truck. Man, he's high as fuck. God damn. Man, I bust my shit again. Man, I had to reopen my knee. I'm supposed to be off tonight. That's what these public servants are discussing, where she's saying that it's high five and beer time. They're discussing this guy who, out of all those different arrests that they've had, have never had this type of issue. Even this is another thing. Hardcore, hard dope dealers or thugs or whatever you might want to call them, they might be bad. Usually, when they get to the police and the police say, put the hands behind my back, you know what they do? The perfect world, I said, they might be saying, I'm going to call a judge and see if he can get me out of this. But they don't do what he did. That's not him trying to be some martyr. That's him, for whatever reason, thinking that he's more important than the process. Being observed, Nichols ignored these lawful commands. So while they're saying, hey, I'm going to be altruistic and say, we need to stop trying to hit him, he's supposed to overcome his own emotion, trying to get this guy into custody, his own adrenaline, his own fatigue, and be able to say, man, his own eyes burning, and say, hey, y'all, you can't hit, don't hit. Because I think there's some human factors that one of the experts talked about, Mr. Zalitkin. Bean observed Nichols gather his legs up. Remember when he's on the ground and they seemingly would have come into some compliance under, you heard Mr. Mills talk about what the aspartame does. What's his response to it? He still stands up and tries to walk off. Now, in this instance, in this case, because of the case and all that stuff, is, he can try to run because he's scared of these officers. Does that make sense? Ask yourselves when y'all are discussing it. He's just so scared that he wants to stand up and walk off from these officers, as opposed to turning over, putting his hand behind his back, and allowing the cuffs to go on. Witnesses testified that Bean is by the book. No prior instances like we talked about before. Nichols was motivated to flee and flight. He's got dope, stolen credit cards, and stolen IDs. That's a motivation for him to act like he did. Once the handcuffs were on, who struck him again? Who kicked him? Who talked bad to him? Not a single person once the handcuffs were on. There's no DNA evidence regarding Bean whatsoever. And what benefit would Bean have from injuring Mr. Nichols? What benefit to him? There's nothing here that indicates that he would have gotten any sort of thrill out of it or any sort of money gain, nothing. And so when you look at these 20-some odd reasons, think about this one also. Think about the video of 6705 Ross Ridge, where Nichols is not yelling for neighbors to come help him or not running his tail off to get to home and all of that. He's ducking and dodging between cars. And you heard the testimony from Mr. Baker that nobody ever went out there to see if there was anybody else's credit cards or any items that would help you break into a car and steal these credit cards. Nobody ever searches or does anything regarding that because the focus was on how it looked and the possible public outcry. That's what the focus was on. And the investigation from the gate was biased. It wasn't any focus about both sides of it. It was all the rumors and innuendos that might be out there about what these guys might have wanted to do and all this type of stuff, but nothing about how difficult it was to bring this guy into custody. This is only, and this will not go back to you for evidentiary purposes, but I want to give emphasis to it because it shows where he is, and you'll have your own individual notes. And this is during the time that there were any strikes rendered. And this is based off of the overhead of the Skycam video. Time that the pepper spray goes all these different ways. Bean's eyes are still blurred and burning, but he has to have a hand on this suspect that has run off from 2 different locations. And he does that. And that's at 20, 33, and 57. This is the time of the video, and you hear Mr. Smith yelling out the different, trying to read the locations. Bean is still with his hands on the person. He's not looking at Martin or what Martin's about to do or can do. His focus is down, and you look at where his head is, it's down. And that's at 20, 34, and 12 seconds. And when you slow it down, slow it to a quarter and see if you can tell whether or not the kick connects to him on either of those kicks. Y'all do it back there. You have the ability, it's the evidence that you got to weigh. But look at it for those purposes as well. Mills is walking off, trying to regather his breathing. Bean and Smith don't have that luxury. They don't have that luxury to gather their breaths. And all this time, could have turned on his stomach and got the handcuffs behind his back and just doesn't do it. This is when the first blow from the baton. You'll see the one hand is gathered by Mr. Bean, and he's holding it as the other is attempting to put the handcuff on. That's at 20, 34, and 56 on the Skycam video. This is the second blow from the baton. Same position, and he's holding that arm. The suspect is still done what the expert referred to as blading his body, or having his body on the side, not on his stomach, trying to get handcuffs on. Mr. Nichols stands up on his own, and they don't have the luxury of saying, hey, let's just let him walk on so he can go up the street. They don't know where he lives. They're holding on to him because they do not want this suspect to get away. When you're at 20-35-08, analysts on the jury and people that are athletic and understand center of gravity, look at how he's pulling when you look at the video and you're isolated at that time. This is at 20-35-09, and it's more definitive than just a few seconds ago. You will see his center of gravity, Mr. Bean's center of gravity, 20-35-09, where he's actively pulling the man away. Away from any kind of blows from this is where center of gravity gets lowest. And imagine that you're pulling somebody like this and they got the strength to not go with your pull. That's where it comes about. Man, he's strong as an MF. He's strong as hell. That's what the other folks are saying. All me saying when they're over there is, man, he was eating. That's what they are offended by. The fact that after dealing with all of this, they say, you know, a person takes pepper spray, punches, etc. Man, he just was eating that stuff because it looked like he was high to them. And as he tries to walk away, Bean grabs that right arm and says, no, you can't walk away as a suspect. Just can't do it. Because at this point, I don't know what you have done and why you have done and why are you acting like this. I don't know it. That's it. That is what you'll see on the videos that offends the state, and I understand that, and this is their case. But this is their case, and this is their burden of proof. Criminal defense cases or criminal cases You have the highest burden of proof in the history of mankind. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not a standard where you're across the street and trying to get custody, or if you're trying to get money on a case where it's preponderance of the evidence, etc. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt. This case, more than any that I've ever had, is not only in this gray area, blue area, it's not in here where it would be not guilty. It's down here, proven not guilty. He videotaped himself, but you got the witnesses. We deal with Mills. Mills is the first witness that they called. That was a fact witness. No plan, no plot, no conspiracy, no knowledge of what Bean was doing, or what Nichols was doing, I'm sorry. You don't have Bean in the car mad, talking about, man, I don't want to be on work tonight. I'm sick of this stuff. I'm sick of the city. I'm sick of the problems that they put us on the front line to deal with. None of that. Just a regular night. They're going about their job. Mills did not testify that Bean used excessive force. To the contrary, he said that his force was appropriate. Hempfield, same thing. I've never seen Bean use excessive force. I've never heard him talk about any kind of street tax. I've never seen him upset. He was a good, quiet officer that minded his business and did his work. That's their testimony. Hempfield had the ability to make up stuff or what have you. He said, and everybody doesn't have people that are in the upper echelons of the police department to tell them. But he wasn't going to kowtow to what the Department of Justice said. He stuck with his story. This is what happened. I wasn't on that second scene, but I know what he was like on the first scene. I know how strong he was. I know he wasn't doing what we asked him to do. I know he was speeding. I know he was changing lanes inappropriately. I know that we followed him 2.5 miles to another location after he thought we had turned off. He stuck with his guns. He ain't facing that type of stuff. So he's smarter than the situation. But he testified favorably regarding Tadarrius Bean. So Matthew testified they were all sworn officers. So these aren't a group of guys that's just out here jumping out of cars and trying to fight somebody or do something wrong to somebody, or a vigilante crew. These are sworn police officers. Matthew, proven not guilty. Robert Long. I don't want to downplay what Robert Long said, but as it relates to Tadarrius Bean, he didn't interfere with any of the assistance given. You see him lifting this guy up, and he was exhausted. And if you don't think he's exhausted after running that many yards to get somebody, count the steps. I counted 93 steps. 93 steps with 40 pounds of ammunition on and a duty belt. You think that that's just a fun night that we want to go out and terrorize somebody? But Robert Long said he wasn't a hindrance. He wasn't in the way. Did what he was supposed to do. Testified favorably for Tadarrius Bean. Greg Turner. He's my favorite, that's his word, trainee. He was studious. I told him what to do one time. I didn't have to tell him again. I was his beginning FTO officer. I was his release into the field secondary FTO officer. And I worked with him for the 2 years that he was in my precinct. Never an issue with him. It's no surprise that they came talking about Tadarrius. We need you on the Scorpion unit. We need you dealing with the issues that Memphis has. He testified for Tadarrius Bean. DNA expert. No DNA expert talking about what all he did and I'm glad I can barely say what deoxyribonucleic acid, ribonucleic acid, or what have you. I didn't have to say any of that. Why? Because there's no evidence regarding Tadarrius Bean. Proven not guilty. Kevion Taylor, I'm jumping back to a character witness. Knew him in college. Knew him at a time that, you might want to get it together. He wasn't 29 years old, he's 20. But he had it together. He had his act together in college. That's a character person. That's not somebody out playing games at night. That's a character person that has what it takes to have been a sworn MPD officer that wants to work and get home at night. Proven not guilty. Marco Ross. Was there any evidence about anything that Bean did regarding any strikes to the head? No, they want to say that Bean, while he's holding this guy who has broken away from 3 officers already, is supposed to be responsible for what kind of day Detective Martin might be having. But we know one thing, that blows to the wrist didn't cause it. Blows to the wrist didn't kill him. Marco Ross, he testified in favor of Tadarrius Bean. Jordan Riley, Kelly Rogers, might forgot the names, but we know one thing, they didn't know Tyre Nichols. We know that. We know that he had their stuff in their car. We know that. We know that they didn't get a ride, telling them to forget their purses or what have you. Why do we know that? Because this stuff happened back in October. This stuff happened back on Halloween. And ironically, the stuff is stolen on the same night and it happens to be in the same person's car. I mean, y'all are 12 people, and I don't know, well, about 14 at this time, but it'll be 12 eventually. I don't know who's smarter or who's not, but you're smart enough to have made it here. A lot smarter than I am, but I can figure this. The stuff didn't belong to Tyre Nichols, and it's in his car. So whether or not it's sesame chicken or trying to get away with their stuff, they testified in favor of Tadarrius Bean. 3 experts. They might say, man, well, how long have you been, Zwicky? I don't know how old Zwicky is. Zwicky's a lot better shape than I probably am. And, like, well, I did law enforcement until about 15 years ago. But I know right from right, I know wrong from wrong. I know what they were doing was right. I know that you have to focus on what you have to focus on. Why? Because as soon as you don't, this guy might not be this good guy trying to get sesame chicken. It might have a pistol in his pocket and blow your brains out. That's what they deal with on a nightly basis. I make a mistake at the table. Martin lean over and say, hey, man, you know what? I should have asked that. You know what? The stinger might look over and say, hey, man, what about this? What do you think? They make a mistake at their table. They can conjure up and say, hey, we should have asked this. That was a bad analogy. Let's do it this way. They can have those conversations. They can have those conversations for an hour. They can talk to you 2 hours about an incident that took place for 3 minutes. Tadarrius Bean can't do that because he'll get his head blown off. He doesn't have the choice of whether or not this man has it together. He does not have the ability to make that assessment. The games have to stop. All 3. Because the state wanted them to, would ask questions regarding the circumstances that they were facing, testified in favor of proving not guilty. I told McKinney next to last, because McKinney knew him from the academy, and then he also testified about the eyes and how it feels, and you'll see his video back there. But he testified about that situation. Johnny Major said, character is when nobody knows what you're doing. Character is what you do when the lights are off. Character is what you do when ain't nobody else watching. That's what character is. Wasn't nobody watching that car when he said, hey, man, come get me and run me a mile up the road. That's character. That is a person who has a fiber in him that nobody else can define for him. So when the New York Times dude called me and said, hey, I want to do a story on the parents to see what they think about their thing, you know what I can say to them? I can say, hey, man, if I'm his parent, I'm jumping up and down with pride that my guy could get out of a car and run after somebody who he knows nothing about because that's what he's sworn to do. I'm not answering the door and saying, hey, does Tyre Nichols live here? No. And these are good people now. These are good people. Good neighborhood. Solid stepdad. Solid man. Help his son get a job. Works with his son. I don't know him. I don't want his problems here. I don't know him. You think about that. Police knock at your door about children. I don't know the man. I'm sorry. I got to do this. I'm petty. If her son wasn't together at 29 years old and he's out on the street and he's running from where the police are, if he's running from them, I'm sorry. If he doesn't have it together, and he should have it together, I apologize to her. She's a good woman. Cussing don't bother me because I'd be cussing about my son if he's dead.
This motherfucker just sat here and said he's petty.
He didn't have it together. Tadarrius Bean had it together. She testified for not guilty. She testified not guilty. So this is where we are.
You dirty motherfucker. This motherfucker just said, I'm petty. I'm going there. Wow.
So I don't have a vote. I don't have the ability to stand back there and to say what's right, what's wrong, or anything. I spent 5 days in your city, and I respect you guys for coming down here and being willing not to make up some story about not wanting to do it and to overcoming whatever it is that is an imposition in your lives, because you got lives that you could be at home dealing with what you do. John Sr., my dad, taught me not to be jealous. Not to be jealous. Don't go to somebody's house and come here talking about, man, I wish we had that TV. Yada, yada, yada. I couldn't do that. Not around him. He wanted me to have the type of character that Tadarrius Bean has. But I got to be frank with you. When I did my Monday morning and Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, I would walk around that square where the aquatic center is. And when they're setting up the festival on that Friday morning, I don't even know what the name of the festival is. I got jealous. That city's right. That city's right. Now, this city has some good leaders. And this city has some leaders that I love. And there's some leaders that I love that are on the opposite side of what they think might have happened out there on that city. I respect that. I got to respect that. But I also got to respect the fact that in this particular case, you got 5 guys that are doing their damnedest to get home. I got one that I represent, that I am at the proudest moment of my life to represent him, because he did what I don't know if I would have the courage to do. He got out of the car and he grabbed a guy that he thought had done something wrong. That he's done it all these other times and it wasn't a problem. But on this particular night, because of how he looks afterwards, after this man had 56 times that they asked him for his hands and refused to do it, because of that public outcry, or whatever it might be, he's got to sit here in front of you all. He has to have put his life in the balance, and it's in your hands. So you got all these different subsets, and while you look at those different subsets, I challenge each one of you that at the end of it to discuss it, because the judge says, hey, you got to read all that stuff, and you're supposed to read it, and it is respectful to read it. But it should be just as easy as he did to jump out that car on each one, not guilty, and to sign it. On the count 2, where it talks about the kidnapping, it should be just as easy. On each one of these pages, you'll have the chance to strike not guilty, not guilty, oppression, not guilty, aggravated assault, not guilty, especially kidnapping. Any of those different charges is simple. You've sworn yourself to do it. You don't owe anybody anything as it relates to sympathies. It's an easy task in this particular case. It's right or wrong. And there's no way to say that, hey, we've gotten to a date in our society and in our world that we can't appreciate the fact that our public officials put their lives on the line for us each day, and they're trying to do right. So it's not a case where they're abusing the badge and trying to go out there and prove a point, or to try to kill somebody or something like that because I'm trying to rob this dope boy. It's not that case. It's simple as ABC. I'm asking this man to do a task. I'm asking him to give me his hands so I can put the handbrace on, and he's not doing it. And I'm trying my best not to break an arm, break a leg. I'm doing everything I know how to do. And you ask me to be more responsible about somebody else's actions at that particular time and risk my own life is too much to ask. That's why I'm jealous. If you act this together, I'm asking that you help us out on this case. That you, at the end of the day, make this an easy verdict and end this foolishness. Get back to where your lives are. Make us have to have what it takes to do the right thing in this case. Overcoming any sort of public sympathies and things like that is simple. Tadarrius Bean is not guilty. And in this case, it's not even a close not guilty. It's proven innocent. Thank y'all.
This motherfucker put on a show. A whole fucking show. Yeah, we definitely need a motherfucking sidebar after that shit, because what the fuck? So basically, fuck how we feel. Basically, what y'all are finna say, I swear to God, this is exactly why I said what the fuck I said Saturday. This is exactly why I said what I said. And I know people were mad at me for saying it. I do not think all three of them are going to get charged with murder or get convicted of murder. I don't. This is exactly why I said what the fuck I said. Especially with Perry ass. Even though Tadarrius bitch ass is guilty from all get out, everybody know all three of them are guilty. But I think Haley.
So that we don't have any interruptions during the closing arguments, we're going to go ahead and end this now and excuse you all for the evening. We're going to have you all come back first thing in the morning. We will pick right back up with the closing arguments from the remaining defendants, as well as the rebuttal, should the state choose to have such. So we're going to go ahead and excuse you all at this time. Please rest well. We will see you all tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow better be it. Shit, as far as closing, it better be. It better be. So I guess I'll see y'all tomorrow at 9:40. Because yeah, court never starts on time here. Like, that's some wild ass shit. That man said, I'm petty. I'm going there. And proceeded to disrespect Rovon Wells in that courtroom. It was disgusting. That man literally sat there and said, I'm petty, and proceeded to disrespect his mama. And it's wild to say how he said in the beginning how, he didn't question his mama. He was respectful to his mama. Do you think that was respectful what you just did, Attorney Perry? With your Uncle Tom ass? Because you a whole fucking Uncle Tom. You are. How the fuck you a civil rights activist and attorney and you doing this shit? Make that one make sense. This is some wild shit. I could only imagine what Stengel and Zumac gonna say tomorrow. That's what I'm saying. Make that shit make sense. You are a representative of civil rights violations and all of that. And then you turn around and you're defending a cop who proceeded to violate every fucking civil right a man had. And because y'all said, oh, no, they didn't plan on beating him. That's a motherfucking lie. They had already made up in their mind once they pepper sprayed themselves and once Tyre ran, he had to get his ass beat. Okay? It's no secret about the run tax here in Memphis. Everybody knew about the run tax. Ask anybody, especially from the hoods. Ask them. Ask anybody from Fraser, North Memphis, South Memphis, Hickory Hood. Ask them. Ask them what happens when you run from MPD. It still goes on. You think they gave a fuck about the DOJ coming down here? Because they didn't. Ask anybody from the hood what happens when you run from traffic stops. It's an automatic ass whooping. Bottom line, it's automatic. Everybody here knows that. Everybody that's in the streets know if you run, it's an automatic ass whooping. And a lot of times it goes unreported because they already know it's not going to go anywhere. I literally had a phone call just to prove to y'all how that shit goes. And she was white. Her sons are white. They got their ass beat by the Scorpion unit. Reported the shit and it went fucking nowhere. Matter of fact, they ended up harassing her and the family more. Matter of fact, harassed all of us. Every time we leave out her driveway, we're getting pulled over. It's wild as hell how they can spin the truth to get their clients out of the fuck shit that they put themselves in. And I think that's the part that really is like, they were just doing their job. No, doing their job would have been locking him up, taking him to jail, alive and well. That's doing their job. But proceeding to beat the shit out of a man because y'all pepper sprayed yourself and because he ran from the scene and because he was trying to cover his face from y'all kicking, hitting, beating him with batons, that's resisting. Even though in the Constitution it says you have every right to defend yourself or protect yourself. But hey, rules for thee, but not for me. I pray to God they are too. I pray to God this jury sees through the bullshit of the defense. I pray to God that the jury actually sits down. And like I said, I don't have to have every charge a conviction on. I don't have to have a conviction on the kidnapping or the aggravated assault. My main thing that I want charges on is the second-degree murder. Bottom line, y'all killed him because he ran. And it all started over a failure to signal for a lane change. Even though the police chief has gotten on national TV and said there was no driving infractions committed. I don't know who's lying in this. I don't know if it's Chief Davis or if it's the officers and the attorneys. I'm betting it's the officers and attorneys, but I'm just saying. So you have that conflict right there. Like I knew Perry was gonna come with the shit though. I knew he was gonna come with the shit. We saw glimpses of it during like cross-examination and shit. We saw him going into his preacher ways. We saw it. So we'll be back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. We're probably not gonna log in at 9 a.m. I'm just gonna be 100 with y'all. We'll probably be here about 9:30ish, 9:40ish, because that seems to be when court starts. So that's when we'll be here. But we'll catch it in the morning for Stengel and Zumac, because you still got Justin and Demetrius attorneys to go through for their closing argument. So. Yeah. Oh, yeah, watch. Closing is not done. We still got 2 attorneys to go through. defense attorneys. Prosecution went, and that was Tadarrius Bean lawyer, Attorney Perry, the one we call Hot Dog Neck, or they call Hot Dog Neck. I call him Attorney Perry, but he's like I said, Tadarrius Bean's attorney. We still got Justin Smith and Demetrius Haley's attorneys to listen to, and then they'll go back and deliberate. So hopefully, I pray they get done with their opening statements in the morning so the jury can go back and, in the afternoon and deliberate. But the way this court has been going, I doubt if that'll happen that way. For prosecute, I don't know during closing. Godly, I don't know if during closing they're able to do a rebuttal. I don't know about that. I'm gonna be honest with y'all on that. I don't know. I guess we'll see tomorrow. I guess we'll see if tomorrow, if the prosecution does or tries to get a rebuttal. But we'll see. So, y'all, be safe out here. Protect your brains. Touch grass. Go do something productive. And that is it. That's all I got for y'all today. We've been here 8 hours again today. So, Sunday, I can talk to her about it. There's something else I've been trying to plan with her and a few other creators that I want to have a big sit down. So, once this trial is done, but of course I got to talk to them about it because there's a few people I want to have a panel, and just get their thoughts on, things. So, but like I said, I got to reach out to them first and ask them because I know with deciphering them, I want to do something with them because they did want to talk about it as well. Of course, nonsense, always nonsense. There's a few others that I would love to, get on panel with as well. So we shall see. But like I said, with everything that's going on, I know Nonsense has a lot on her plate right now, especially trying to be there for Chap. Chap, shout out to Chap. Prayers up for Chap. Y'all know she's going through cancer right now, so we need all the prayers we can get for her. Fuck cancer. I went through that shit with my mom, and I'm lucky I still have my mama. But fuck cancer. So shout out to Chap, prayers for Chap. And and I do have her email if anybody needs it. If you want to reach out to her, I do have that, and I can post it if y'all need me to. But we did get permission to post her email if y'all want to reach out to her. Hang on, Boochie. I'll get it right now for you. That's Chap's email right there. So if you want to reach out to her, there you go. And that is it, y'all. I'll catch y'all tomorrow. A bitch is tired. I'm exhausted today. Of course, I didn't sleep last night either, so there's that. But y'all have a good day, and I'll catch y'all tomorrow. And I appreciate everyone being here. I appreciate every last one of y'all who has hung out with me this whole week, last week. I appreciate all of y'all. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Like, without y'all, none of this would be possible. So shout out to y'all as well. I appreciate y'all sticking with this and sticking with me through the technical difficulties and all of that. So y'all be good, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.